Good evening, committee members, mayor, mayor pro tem, council members, and members of the public. I'm Tim Kelly. I'm the Special Operations Commander with the Police Department. This presentation will be the department's 2022 Military Equipment Use Report, required since the passage of Assembly Bill 481 in January of 2022. This is the first report of this kind, but will be something that the department will be providing annually moving forward. I want to begin by apologizing for the length of this presentation, but there is a lot of information that the law requires that the department provide. It will be the recommendation of the police department that the Community Services, Public Safety, and Housing and Development Committee recommend the City Council receive and file this annual report. It will also be the recommendation of the Police Department that the City Council receive and file this annual report of the Police Department's military equipment inventory and use. To give some background, in January of 2022, Assembly Bill 41 was passed and codified in California Government Code sections 7070 through 7075. These laws define various equipment as being military equipment and require a law enforcement agency's governing body, which in our case is City Council, to approve the use, purchase, and acquisition of this equipment. It also requires law enforcement agencies to keep an inventory of this equipment and make it available to the public. On June 7th, 2022, City Council adopted the Oxnard Police Department Military Equipment Use Policy. This policy exists in Section 708 of the Oxnard Police Department's Policy Manual. This policy and our inventory can be found on the Oxnard Police Department's website. In addition, California Government Code Section 7072 requires law enforcement agencies to submit an annual military equipment report. Policy Section 708 was enacted on July 6th of 2022, so this report will include data from that date until December 31st of 2022. Information that must be included in this report includes a summary of how the military equipment was used and the purpose of its use, a summary of any complaints or concerns received concerning the military equipment, the results of any internal audits, information about military equipment use policy violations and any actions taken in response, the total annual cost for each type of military equipment, the quantity possessed for each type of equipment, as well as any military equipment the department intends to acquire the next year, including the quantity sought. So moving forward, the remainder of the slides will cover all these data points that the law requires that we cover. So beginning with California Government Code Section 7070C1, this section defines unmanned, remotely piloted, powered, aerial, or ground vehicles as military equipment. The Police Department's Unmanned Aerial Services Unit has been in existence since 2019 and uses several small unmanned aerial vehicles, commonly referred to as UAVs. These UAVs have been proven to be an invaluable tool for officers and act similarly to a helicopter, however, can be operated at a fraction of the cost. To give an idea of some of the missions this equipment performs, they are used for crime scene documentation, providing video and aerial photographs, as well as 3D diagramming of scenes. Also conducting area searches for missing or wanted subjects, inspecting hazardous materials or explosives, and providing real-time situational awareness during high-risk SWAT operations. All operators in the UAS unit are certified under the Federal Aviation Administration, and all flights are documented in a flight log. The equipment currently being used by the UAS unit was purchased before July of 2022. The only expenditure during this reporting period was sending a sergeant to a pilot school. The cost of this school was $1,500. During this reporting period, UAVs were used 51 times and the department received no complaints regarding their use. This slide shows a breakdown of the types of missions the UAVs flew. Also, the bottom shows a photograph of one of the UAVs that is similar to one of the ones that the UAS unit uses. The SWAT team does own a small battery-operated remote-controlled robot. This robot is used to enter structures to locate violent, often armed subjects wanted for violent crimes. Using this robot prevents officers from entering unfamiliar buildings and potentially becoming engaged in an armed encounter with a suspect. It's equipped with a two-way communication system, which allows officers to negotiate with individuals from a distance. Prior to introducing the robot into a residence, a search warrant must be obtained. The department has owned this robot for approximately 15 years. All training is provided by SWAT personnel, and there are no ongoing costs associated with this equipment. During this reporting period, the robot was not used. This is a photograph of the robot the SWAT team uses. It's called the Robotex Avatar robot. Mine-resistant ambush protected vehicles or armored personnel carriers are defined as military equipment under California Government Code Section 7070C2. The department owns two Lanco Bearcat armored rescue vehicles. The first was purchased in 2000, and in 2022, the Oxnard Police Department Canine Foundation donated a second Bearcat. These vehicles are built specifically for civilian law enforcement agencies. They're armored. They provide ballistic protection to officers and allows officers to safely use de-escalation tactics when dealing with armed and violent suspects, providing a greater level of safety to officers and community members. These vehicles are frequently used by the SWAT team's Tactical Emergency Medical Services, referred to as TEMS. TEMS members are made up of fire personnel from the Oxnard Fire Department. Whenever the SWAT team responds to a high-risk incident, TEMS personnel also respond. TEMS personnel can work from the relative safety of these armored rescue vehicles and are able to respond quickly to treat any injuries to officers, community members, or suspects. The only ongoing costs associated with these vehicles are the cost of fuel and preventative maintenance. These vehicles are frequently used by the SWAT team and were used on 13 occasions during this reporting period. Some of the incidents these vehicles were used for included barricaded incidents involving violent crimes, including homicides and assault with deadly weapons. No complaints were received regarding their use during this reporting period. The slide shows the two armored vehicles' 3-year fuel and maintenance cost. As a reminder, the newest armored vehicle was purchased was donated in 2022. And this is a photograph of the newest Bearcat that was donated by the Canine Foundation. Government Code Section 7070C4 defines tracked armored vehicles that provide ballistic protection and utilize a tracked system as being military equipment. The department does not have any of these vehicles. However, the Ventura County Sheriff's Department does own one. The vehicle is a small Caterpillar brand front loader, which is referred to as a Rook. It is armored and provides ballistic protections to its operator. It also has several implements that it can use, including a large ballistic platform. This vehicle is used to also introduce chemical agents into buildings and vehicles, as well as it has an implement that can be used to force doors and windows open. This equipment is used during unusually high-risk incidents when SWAT officers are dealing with a barricaded suspect who is either armed or believed to be armed, and keeps officers safe and allows officers to use various less lethal tools when attempting to take a wanted armed and violent suspect into custody. The Sheriff's Department makes this equipment available to the police department, and it was used twice during this reporting period. Once on an incident involving a suspect wanted in connection with a home invasion robbery, which resulted in a homicide, and the second time, a suspect that was wanted for making criminal threats and was wanted for brandishing several people with a deadly weapon. This vehicle, the Rook, is owned and operated and maintained by the Sheriff's Department and is available to the Oxnard Police Department at no cost. No complaints were received with regard to its use during this reporting period. This is a photograph from a news clipping that shows the Rook being used during an operation. The operation involved a incident in which a suspect was barricaded and was wanted for a home invasion robbery, and also was wanted for a homicide. So moving on, command and control vehicles are considered military equipment under California Government Code Section 7070C5. The department currently owns 6 vehicles which fall under this category. One is a large mobile command vehicle. A second one is a mid-sized mobile command vehicle, which is used by the SWAT team, as well as 4 Ford Explorer sport utility vehicles that are used by sergeants working patrol. These vehicles assist with the managing of officers and resources during larger scale incidents. They're equipped with radios, computers, whiteboards, lighting, and other equipment needed to manage an incident. For reporting purposes, the Ford Explorers were considered to have been used when responding to large scale incidents. They're driven on a daily basis, so they are technically used every day. However, we interpreted the word as use as meaning they were specifically used as a command vehicle. The Ford utility vehicles were used a total of 11 times during this reporting period. Most of these incidents were during SWAT team deployments. The SWAT command post was not used and is currently in the process of being replaced. The large command vehicle was used 14 times during this reporting period. This included during community events, major crime scene investigations, and also during DUI checkpoint operations. All vehicles in this category were purchased before the passage of AB 41. The only ongoing cost associated with these vehicles is maintenance and fuel. And this is a photograph of the large mobile command vehicle, and the bottom is a photograph of one of the Ford utility vehicles. California Government Code Section 7070C7 covers battering rams, slugs, and breaching apparatuses that are explosive in nature. Again, this is considered military equipment. The SWAT team does own 2 shotguns designed for defeating locks and has owned this equipment for nearly 2 decades. They fire slugs made of compressed clay, and these slugs are designed to defeat door locks and then break apart into a fine powder, thus mitigating any risk of injury to anyone on the other side of the door. They're used during critical incidents such as hostage rescues and active shooter incidents when it's crucial that officers can quickly gain access into a locked room. These shotguns are only used by trained SWAT personnel, and department instructors give the training that is required. There are no ongoing costs associated with this equipment aside from the occasional need to purchase the specialized ammunition. We have not needed to purchase any ammunition in quite some time. These shotguns were not used during this reporting period, thus there were no complaints. Specialized firearms and ammunition of less than 50 caliber, including assault weapons defined in sections 30510 and 30515 of the California Penal Code, are defined as military equipment under California Government Code section 7070C10. The department does utilize 5.56 caliber rifles. These rifles are assigned to SWAT officers and officers who have successfully completed the required California Peace Officers Standards in Training, or POST, a rifle course. Officers assigned to these rifles may deploy with them when circumstances lead officers to reasonably believe their use may be necessary. Examples of when these rifles may be used include but are not limited to situations when officers anticipate encountering an armed suspect, situations requiring accurate and effective fire at long distances, such as during an active shooter event, when officers reasonably expect the need to meet or exceed a suspect's firepower, as well as when officers believe that an armed suspect is potentially wearing body armor. During this reporting period, 19 officers attended a 3-day Peace Officer Standard and Training, or POST, certified school. The Ventura County Sheriff's Department hosted this course, and Oxnard officers attended this course for free. The only major ongoing costs associated with these rifles consist of the training ammunition. Officers must frequently practice with these rifles to remain proficient in using them. The department spent approximately $57,000 on rifle ammunition during the 2022 calendar year. The ammunition was purchased using the department's ordinance budget. Ongoing training is provided by the Oxnard Range training officers, and maintenance and repairs are provided by range training staff that are certified armorers. In addition to the initial training, officers must successfully re-qualify with their rifles annually and must show proficiency. During this reporting period, with the exception of training, none of these rifles were fired. POST defines intentional pointing of a firearm as a reportable use of force. This means that anytime an officer points a rifle or a handgun at a member of the public, the incident is documented as a use of force report. This report is ultimately submitted to the department's professional standards unit and is investigated and recorded. During this reporting period, rifles were pointed 84 times on 25 occasions. This means that 84 rifles were pointed during 25 individual incidents. These numbers may seem confusing when you first look at them. 84 rifles during 25 incidents, but when I looked at into the circumstances, 25 of these incidents, I realized that a large percentage involved SWAT operations. During those operations, it was common for multiple officers to point their rifles during a single incident, which kind of inflated the number. The department did not receive any complaints regarding the use of these rifles during this reporting period. In addition to the 5.56 caliber rifles, the department does utilize the 308 caliber precision rifle, which is commonly referred to as a sniper rifle. The SWAT team possesses 6 of these rifles. They're only used by the SWAT team and are used by officers specifically trained to use them and specifically trained to operate as snipers. Officers that are assigned to work as snipers attend an extensive 40-hour post-certified training course and qualify with these rifles on a monthly basis. These rifles allow SWAT personnel to deliver accurate fire from short and long-range distances when dealing with a lethal force encounter. They are only used when no other means of force is feasible. During this reporting period, two SWAT officers attended a 40-hour post-certified course, and the cost of this course was $350 per officer. As is the case with any other type of firearm, any deliberate pointing of these rifles at a member of the public is considered a reportable use of force and must be documented. During this reporting period, these rifles were pointed a total of 4 times. They were not fired except during training. No complaints were received regarding their use. California Government Code Section 7070C12 defines flashbang grenades and explosive tools, tear gas, and pepper balls as military equipment. The SWAT team uses light sound diversionary devices, which are commonly referred to as flashbangs. These devices emit an intense light and loud sound and are used to disorient and divert suspects' attention away from officers. The SWAT team has successfully used these tools for several decades. The use of these tools often causes enough of a distraction to suspects that officers can employ other less lethal tools or use other de-escalation techniques. These devices are frequently used to distract a suspect's attention away from a door officers must force open when dealing with a barricaded suspect. This significantly reduces the risk to officers. All personnel authorized to use these devices attend a mandatory training course, including a qualification course. Post-certified department members provide this training. No costs were associated with these devices during this rating period. Light sound diversionary devices were used a total of 14 times during this reporting period, including during barricades and high-risk search and arrest warrant services. The department did not receive any complaints regarding their use. The SWAT team also uses chemical agents, more commonly referred to as tear gas. Chemical agents are a less lethal tool that uses chemical irritants to force a barricaded suspect from a structure or vehicle, preventing officers from having to enter and potentially becoming involved in a lethal encounter. Exposure to these chemical irritants causes discomfort, but the effects are brief and subside quickly once an individual is moved from the area where the chemical agent has been introduced. SWAT officers receive training from post-certified department instructors. Chemical agents were used 3 times during this reporting period. The police department did receive 1 complaint concerning an incident on September 2nd of 2022. On that date, the SWAT team assisted the Ventura County Sheriff's Department in locating and arresting a suspect that was wanted for an armed robbery which occurred in the city of Thousand Oaks. The suspect was located at an address in the city of Port Hueneme. The suspect refused to exit and barricaded himself inside of an attic, and after numerous unsuccessful attempts to gain the suspect's compliance to exit and surrender, chemical agents were finally introduced into the house. The suspect exited the residence after the chemical agents were used and was taken into custody. Although SWAT officers knew that an elementary school was nearby, approximately a block away, the school was no longer occupied given the time of day. Unbeknownst to officers, some staff were still on campus. Unfortunately, due to the wind conditions, some school staff sensed residual chemical agents in the air. A few of the staff members were slightly exposed to the chemical agents, which resulted in watery eyes and sneezing. These effects subsided quickly and did not require any medical intervention. No students were reported to have been impacted. Since this incident, the Special Operations Commander, has worked with the school districts to develop a protocol to notify schools of any future SWAT operations that occur near a school. The SWAT team is also aware that many of the schools have after-school programs, and we're obviously now very mindful that campuses may still be occupied even when school is no longer in session. The police department also uses pepper balls as one of its less lethal tools. Pepper balls are similar to paintball guns that deploy small spheres containing a chemical irritant. Pepper balls are one of several less lethal tools used to overcome violent and resistant suspects without the need for use of lethal force. Officers are trained by post-certified department members. The pepper ball was not used during this reporting period and no complaints were received. This photograph depicts some of the chemical agents that the department uses, as well as a light sound diversionary device and a launcher used to launch pepper balls. California Government Code Section 7070C14 defines 40 millimeter projectile launchers, beanbags, rubber bullets, and specialty impact munition weapons as military equipment. The department does use several less lethal weapons, including a 40 millimeter extended range impact projectile, as well as less lethal shotguns that fire what are referred to as beanbag impact munitions. These weapons allow officers to engage violent, potentially armed suspects from a safe distance, allowing officers to attempt to de-escalate the situation. They often prevent officers from having to use lethal force. During this reporting period, officers utilized the less lethal shotgun on 5 occasions and the 40 millimeter extended impact weapon on 3 occasions. Any deployment of either of these less lethal weapons, whether or not it makes contact with a person, is considered a reportable use of force and is reviewed by the Professional Standards Unit. The department did not receive any complaints during this reporting period with regards to either the 40 millimeter or the beanbag shotgun. And this is a photograph of the less lethal shotgun that we use, as well as a 40 millimeter extended range impact launcher. California Government Code Section 7070 requires the department to disclose any equipment considered military equipment under the statute that it intends to acquire as part of this report. The department will acquire the following items during the 2023 calendar year. On February 7th of 2023, the City Council approved the purchase of a new large mobile command vehicle. $750,000 of the American Rescue Plan Act funds will be used for this purchase. This vehicle will replace the department's existing large mobile command vehicle, as well as the SWAT command vehicle. Unfortunately, both of these vehicles have become antiquated and are no longer able to fulfill the department's needs. Both will either be sold or auctioned once we take delivery of the new vehicle. The photograph below is a vehicle similar to the type of vehicle that we're currently having, that is currently being built for us. The following 6 items were approved by City Council on April 4th of 2023. A 30-foot trailer that will serve as a DUI enforcement operations center. This will be used by the traffic unit and will assist with the department's ongoing goal of reducing DUI and drug-related traffic collisions through enforcement and also education. It will be outfitted with communications equipment, computers, workstations, lighting. It also has a restroom that's available for officers. The cost to outfit the trailer will be $124,286.39 and will be funded through the California Highway Patrol Cannabis Tax Fund grant monies. The department purchased a transit van, which will be outfitted with equipment which will allow it to be used as a command center for our unmanned aerial services unit. The approximate cost to outfit the van will be between $30,000 and $40,000 and will be paid for using California Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Funds monies. And these are photographs. The top photograph is the van and what it will look like once it is outfitted. Again, this particular van will be used by our unmanned aerial services unit and will serve as a command vehicle. A second transit van was purchased for the traffic unit and will also be outfitted and will be used to respond to major traffic collisions as well as other significant investigations such as homicide investigations. The cost to outfit the van was $26,693 and will be paid for using funds from the Ventura County Service Authority for Freeway Emergencies. The department will also be purchasing three .308 caliber rifles, which will replace 3 existing rifles used by the SWAT team that have reached the end of their service lives. The total number of rifles will remain at 6. The purchase price will be approximately $20,000 and will be paid for using asset forfeiture funds. The department will also be purchasing chemical agents, specifically CS agent. This will replace chemical agents that were used during SWAT operations during this reporting period. This purchase will bring the SWAT team's chemical agent inventory back to its previous number. The cost of this purchase will be $2,173.03 and will be paid for through the department's ordinance budget. That concludes my presentation. Again, I apologize for the length of the presentation, but there was a lot of information that I needed to get through. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.